Here in the Northern Rockies, dark winter months are outlasted in basements, dens, and nooks where kindred souls gather together to share intel, swap fly patterns, and relive the memories from seasons past. This gathering spot, known locally as the February Room, is the inspiration for this podcast. No matter the season, the door is always open to those with a fly fishing story to tell. Brought to you by CD Fishing USA, the North American distributor for composite development fly rods and accessories. 40 years of Kiwi ingenuity and graphite technology, now available at cd-fishing.us or your local CD USA dealer. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And remember to go fishing. Here's your host, the Karnoffs, and this is the February Room.
We were among those lucky souls who got to feel this one at her wildest. A clan of whitewater guides at large on a beast uncaged, jacked on that big water cocktail of dust mouth fear and raw joy when we pulled into camp on our first night. That is an excerpt from our guest column, which has graced the back page of Bugle magazine since the advent of email. As editor, he was at the helm, but the back page is more his style, and now unencumbered by employment, he can freely roam the back trails and back eddies, gun or rod in hand. Dan Crockett, welcome to the show.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. It's great to be here with you.
Well, man, we really are stoked to have you here. There's a lot to listen to. And you know, how about them Huskers?
The Huskers are all right.
Well, let's dive in. Let's hear a story, Dan.
Well,
I know you got a few.
I do have a few. I guess I should start out by saying that I came to fishing about as crude as you could come to it. I started out, my dad was a trot liner, as was his dad and his dad before him. And if you don't know what that is, it's you run about a 500-pound test cord all the way across a river, put on little staging lines, a couple feet on those. And what we fished with were live carp, about the size of my hand. And our quarry was the flathead catfish. You know, people think catfish are trash fish that just eat stinky stuff, but flatheads, it's live. They want to hunt down their own stuff and eat it. So that's what we did. And the river that I started trot lining on was called the Neosho, which, you know, the Osage, it's their word originally. And there's lots of disputed definitions for it. But the one that I like is water the color of a summer cow wapiti.
Oh, nice.
True story.
Nice.
Yeah, it kind of brings a big circle, man.
Very cool.
For those who don't know, wapiti
no
is the that was the Native American word for elk. So some call it wapiti. It's wapiti to me.
And it's the Neosho?
The Neosho.
The Neosho. Okay.
Yeah,
And is that in western Nebraska?
No, that's in southeast Kansas, south central Kansas. My dad grew up down there. That's where his folks lived, and they had generations of redneck trot liners, which I fell right into.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
We used to fish for those a little bit in Nebraska, where my grandparents farmed on the Loop River.
Oh
yeah. So anyway,
I know the Loop.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So crude beginnings, but I eventually evolved. But I look down on no style of fishing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd go right now if you said, let's get in the truck and go throw clousers on the Neosho, I would roll in a heartbeat. That sounds awesome.
Well, there you go. All right. So that's by way of bringing me around to then spending my life fooling around with talking about elk. But yeah, if you want a fishing story, my my beginnings, I spent a lot of time fishing to things that weren't even fish. When I first got into fly fishing, I was 19. I mean, my folks gave us like broomsticks, South Bend rods when we were kids. And we actually probably spent as much time catching bullfrogs on those things, which if you've never caught a bullfrog on a fly, it's kind of an interesting fight. Half in the water, half on land. They're a dual threat.
Yeah, man. And delicious too.
And delicious as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I didn't really get serious about fly fishing. It took me over when I started guiding out there in Colorado, as you alluded to. in that intro. And I spent probably an hour before I recognized the folly of my ways, but I had gone up this little creek that was supposed to have, rumored to have giant brook trout in it. And underneath there's a little waterfall coming out of a beaver pond, bubble veil, and I could see this blue and silver shape down in there. And I was like, oh, there it is, man. That's the king. And I fished to that thing and fished to it, and I keep inching up, and finally I recognized that it was an old Hamm's beer can. The blue kind, silver, little red, all the brooky colors. Well, it's been a long run of that, man.
Did you pick it up and drink it? That was a rule that a buddy of mine had. Like, if you found a beer in the river, no matter how old it was,
well, I can understand that rule.
Yeah, you had to drink it, or the river gods were going to curse you for life.
Yeah, well, this thing it was long drunk. It was empty, save for sediment. But anyway,
so the hams wouldn't take a fly.
No, the hams never rose.
Man, I put eyes on this bedded buck in the sage one time for 3 hours, and like
I do know.
I sat there and I studied it with binos, spotting scope, spotting scopes, and I just finally concluded, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to shoot this thing. And right before I pulled the trigger, like the light kind of changed or something. And I finally realized that it was just a stick. It was just a collection of sticks. But I mean, it had a nose, it had eyes, it had everything. Like, it was unbelievable. So yeah, man, that's I've kind of been there.
Yeah, well, that's how stimulators work on fish, man. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, true. Awesome. So you were with the Elk Foundation for 33 years, as you told me. So,
that's true.
So how did you go from guiding in Colorado, whitewater guiding, right?
Yes. There's a huge dichotomy between the whitewater guide and the fishing guide.
It's a better life, the whitewater guide. I started out that way, and I don't know why I went back, because you went out and you did your guide trip, and then you went fishing by yourself.
Well, that's true. That's true. But the other thing, there's just an incredible disparity in wages.
True.
You're a whitewater guide. You got a real chance of killing somebody.
Yeah.
You got 6 people in your boat.
You get $50.
You get, maybe. And $20 for tips.
Right.
Fishing guide, you're making, 10 times that much.
Right.
Worst thing that can happen, dude hooks himself in the ear.
True.
Gets grumpy because he didn't catch the big one.
Right. Yeah.
As you know,
exactly.
That sort of thing. In any case, they both have their charms. I've been on both sides of it and love both sides of it.
Sure. Absolutely, man. So you guided down, and you guided with John Herzer in Colorado,
I did.
right?
I did.
You guys are old pals.
And we met as teenagers.
Oh, cool. Wow.
And I've been on a zillion misadventures since then.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I wasn't in that neighborhood.
You probably are.
Yeah.
For
sure.
Yeah. We had no egos at that point.
No, no, not at all. No, I'm sure. So you went from guiding. Were you always a writer? Were you, is that something that you always pursued and then, came to work for the Elk Foundation, or how'd that all go down?
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I ever felt like I was any good at. I've always liked to write. I was just writing stories when I was in 2nd grade. Just to write them.
Yeah.
I started out in environmental studies and quickly concluded that was not my strong suit, and switched over to journalism and, hoped to combine the two, and kind of wound up doing that.
Okay.
Went to journalism school at the University of Kansas.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Jayhawk.
I was a Jayhawk.
Awesome. Okay.
And remain so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
when basketball comes around anyway.
Lost to Oklahoma this weekend.
Why go into it?
Anyway, sorry. I digress.
Indeed. Yeah. So yeah, I when I moved to Montana, my wife and I wife at the time, I didn't know a single human being. There were already too many people in Colorado. I wanted to be where there was wilder country,
right? More
rivers, fewer people, more wild fish. And I saw this Elk Foundation thing, and it was just getting off the ground. It was 5 years old, and I thought, that's what I want to do. And I just bugged them. I kind of pestered my way into a job. They hired me 20 hours a week, $7 an hour.
And you were working for Bugle in some capacity?
I started right away working on Bugle.
And was like Shelvin the editor at that time?
He was, which I could not have had a better mentor and really just a great friend. He's a wonderful human being, incredibly intelligent dude.
Cool.
Funny.
Yeah.
Wise.
That's what I've heard, man. I've always wanted to meet him.
You should.
That'd be cool.
Even now, he's just a wonderful human being. So is his wife, all their children. They're just good people. He was the very first employee of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he took the leap. He bought into it.
Is he still around here?
Yeah, he lives here in town.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay,
I saw him about 6 weeks ago.
Awesome. So you started out $7 an hour, 20 hours a week.
True story.
Okay.
And still fishing guiding on the side.
Were you?
Yeah.
Here in Missoula.
Yeah, and around. I got to run my very first Smith trip in September of '89.
Oh wow.
When they hired me, I said, "Well, look, I've already got this trip. I'm going to go do this thing," and that was the first of a great many over there.
So were you guiding with Herzer back then in those days?
Some of the time.
Okay, cool. I didn't know this.
Yeah, the guy we both worked for, a guy named Mark Jones. You ever remember him?
Dude, I took Jonesy. I took Jonesy on my last trip that I ever did before I quit guiding the second time.
That'll bring you out of guiding for sure.
Well, yeah, no, it was really entertaining though. Yeah, I had a really good, and he had some crazy Italian friend with him who you probably know too. I think who'd been his fishing buddy for a long time. I can't remember his name, but he was loud. But yeah, no, Jonesy, he chewed my ear all day. Okay, cool. Yeah. I got to meet him.
That's who we started out with.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Good deal.
It was a good deal.
Yeah. So then, at what point did you become like the editor of the kind of honcho, the editor?
Well, I don't know that I was a honcho. I mean, Lance was still around, but he just got so busy doing other things and became elevated up into the upper echelon. So I took over as the editor in '92. And so,
man, that's a long time.
Did it for 30 years. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Wow, cool.
But I've loved every bit of it, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've always been like a real champion for the Elk Foundation too. That's one thing that I've always noticed in my, dealings with you and everything that you do with your work. It's like a lot of writers become kind of self-centric. And you've always struck me as somebody who's not that way, who's always kind of put the mission of the Elk Foundation first.
Good. That certainly was my hope. I mean, it's easy to get wrapped up in your own stories, and we all love them. But the Elk Foundation, just yesterday, the state land board voted 4-1 on the big snowies, which will be that's 5,700 acres of going to be new public ground. That's the Elk Foundation. Been driving that thing for years, and finally, it's one vote away. You just have one. You got the state land board that now has to vote on it, but hopefully with that 4-1 vote, it'll sail on through, and that it gets back into another 10,000 acres of public ground, and that's the stuff I love.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's funny. Lauren called me right before you got here because we've been kind of waffling on where we're going to go this weekend. We got grandma's coming to town. Our traditional spot, they changed the unit boundaries, and now it's open for general buck in there. So everyone's going in there. It's been like a trophy hunt for 25 years or something. So anyway, she's like, "What about the big snowies? I just read this." I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Access
is tricky in there.
It's limited, and this place is not going to open. Well, it's not even a done deal, but if it goes through as we expect it to at this point, sure hope it will. It's going to open in 23.
Got it.
But
well, there
are other ways to get into the big snowies. That's not the one and only.
I'm sure there are, but not now. Like, to drive up there in the dark in a camper is not the place to start that search probably for us. But well, cool, man. So so now what are we doing? I mean, now you're just we're just tearing it up. We're fishing, we're hunting.
I have done both of those things. My wife and I went up into the missions for one last backpack just last weekend. Caught probably my last cutthroat of the year on dry flies on Sunday.
Cool.
They were eating October caddis,
Were they really up there?
Hyperphagia, yeah, like
Nice.
grizzlies, you
Awesome.
didn't have to be a great angler on that deal.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool.
It was gorgeous. Huckleberries and the Manzizia, all that low stuff was just on, the reds and the oranges and same colors in the cutthroat. It's just beautiful. So pretty lucky.
So the grizzlies are eating the October caddis larva up there?
No. I've said that the grizzlies are in this hyperphagia deal where they're trying to pack on as many pounds as they possibly can before they go to bed, if they ever go to bed these days. And the cutthroats appear to be doing the same thing.
I understand. So I thought, like, for a second, I'm like, wait a minute, are those moss that they dig up there actually October caddis? Is he telling me something? What's going on?
They cast a wide net. I would never rule it out. Grizzlies eat all kinds of stuff.
They might dig.
They could find a way to get.
They might dig up some October caddis.
You never know.
Out of a lake up there. Yeah,
they'd sure dig that cutthroat if they could get at it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
It was great. But other than that, mostly all I've done is hunt birds.
Yeah. Good for you.
I am going to settle down and start trying to get up in the morning and writing, but it's only been a couple of weeks. It's October only comes around once a year. You want to grab and get hold of it, and what a beauty it's been so far.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable. It's been very hard to do anything constructive. Depending on your definition of constructive.
Precisely. I hope you've been out there chasing elk.
No, I haven't.
No?
No, man. I've been on the river a bunch.
Well, that's a good place.
It's been okay. I needed to work, needed to buckle down. I didn't bow hunt, man. I don't bow hunt like I used to, it's partly due to time. It's partly due to the bear thing kind of freaks me out. It's partly due to the number of hunters. It's partly due to, you lose an animal. I lost an animal a few years ago that just really bothered me because, just all that stuff. But I kind of just lean on the rifle anymore.
Oh, I get you. I'm a rifle hunter myself. I mean, if you hunt elk, bow hunting's clearly the way. I mean, can you beat bugling bulls in September?
No.
But I'm a rifle dog. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, I kind of am at my heart too. Like I grew up rifle hunting, and then I got into bow hunting later.
Yeah.
But rifle hunting still reminds me of rifle hunting when I was a kid.
Right. It's a touchstone for sure.
Yeah.
If you like getting on a set of tracks and seeing where they go,
dude, it's fun.
It has its charms.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. If you don't mind going in a whole bunch of nasty old blowdown.
Yeah, which apparently I don't.
It doesn't seem like you do.
Manage to find myself
Here I am
no
again.
matter what. Yeah. God dang it. Yeah, I don't know how I can do that time and time again, even though I've been there before. That's
because that's where they go, man.
I know, it's true.
Mean, you can sit where it's pretty and stuff, or you can go where they are.
It's true. It's true. So with your time as a river guide now, river guiding, and I was talking with Chris Dombrowski about this a while ago, and he was, relating like his personal challenges and struggles that he had with his writing when he was guiding a lot, just due to time, and how like he would have one season for working and one season for writing, and it never seemed to flow and put it all together. And, it was just kind of fragmented.
He's doing all right. You never know it.
He's doing all right. He's doing all right. But he said, he's like, but the guiding, he's like, that's where I get a lot of my material,
right.
Just also from, not only just the clients and the chaos and the scenery and the people, and, but the people, river guides, hanging out with river guides, like river guides are, kind of eclectic. But they're very capable people. They're really interesting people to be around. Like, you get 5 or 6 river guides, and I mean, you can get some shit done. Did you find that too? Like in your writing, do you think that like you gleaned a lot of material and perspective from your years as a river guide that you maybe still surfaces sometimes?
Oh boy, it'd be nice to think so, for sure. I mean, certainly I'd like to think that rivers have taught me lessons and still do every time I go out, if I can just listen up, but yeah, that really has been, it's, you do that stuff. I started as a teenager, and guided the first 2 years that I worked, 83, 84 were the 2 biggest water years in the Southwest. in 80, 90 years. They were outrageously big. It was a heck of a baptism. And it really, that's kind of been the core group of friends, you know, including Herzer, that I've just hung on to, you know, and just that whole way of looking at, you know, the whole DIY ethic, that's me to the bone. You know, that's the guys that I go hang. We're there. Most of the people that I'm doing trips with here 40 years later, they're all old guides, and they're all just really comfortable. They like being out there and doing it themselves. They'd rather figure it out and muddle through. Not that we're against guides, because we've been them, and you can learn a lot. But ultimately, I'd rather do it myself. You know, sure, I'll go with a guide, but the next time you see me on that river or in that ocean, whatever it may be, I'll probably be trying it myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Be careful who you guide.
Precisely.
No doubt.
Yeah. But that didn't really answer your question, how it's informed my writing. The you know, people make stories, and the time on the rivers make stories that you just, I mean, they show you things that you otherwise would never have experienced. And it just shapes your whole way of looking at the world. And that can't help but then influence the way you write. You know, Thomas McGuane would cringe to hear me say it, but he's probably the biggest reason I moved to Montana. Was, to me, nobody writes about fishing better than him, ever. And that's a big statement. There's a lot of wonderful fishing writers, and I've read quite a few of them.
Yeah, you wouldn't get a ton of argument there, I don't think.
But yeah, you know, I read An Outside Chance, and I was like, oh, I got to get up there, man.
Really?
I got to get there. Yeah.
And
that, you know, I didn't have a giant plan. Like I said, I didn't have a job. I didn't know a soul when I moved up here 33 years ago, and I was good with that.
Right.
It's like, let's go. We'll figure it out. Can always guide.
Well,
right?
You know,
you got skills.
Well, I hate to tell you this, Dan, but you're one of the reasons why I'm sitting here right now too. So there you go. You gotta wear that. You gotta wear that stigma. So, you know, I kind of did the same thing. I moved here on a bit of a whim, and it was, you know, this is the hub of outdoor media, right? Like, this is where you guys were. And I didn't know about the television production company I ended up working for, but they happened to be here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, now you have BHA based here. You've got, you know, there's also
Boone and Crockett.
Boone and Crockett, of course. Yeah. Right.
Backcountry, Montana to you.
Everybody. It's a hub.
It is a hub.
If you're looking to get into outdoor media, this ain't a bad place to start.
You could do a lot worse. Clark Fork Coalition, our own homegrown.
Right. Yeah.
Ton of great nonprofits working for wild places here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Along those lines, so like, you know, if some, because people ask me this all the time, and I'm not really the person to ask, but if somebody is trying to sell their first article to a publication such as Bugle or whatever it may be, like, what kind of advice do you give somebody like that's trying to get their foot in the door as a writer?
Oh man,
it's a lot, I'm sure. But.
Well, it's just such a changed world, and I'm about to find out because I'm going to go back into the world of being a freelancer instead of sitting on the other end of the table.
Fun.
I'm
excited
for sure.
That.
Well, luckily I don't have to make a penny doing it, but and maybe that'll hurt me because I'm not going to be hungry enough. But we'll find out. I got some stories I want to tell for sure. But you know, it's the print landscape is so constricted now from what it was. You know, when I started out, there were so many more magazines, and they were monthly instead of quarterly or bi-monthly. And there's a lot of magazines where you better know the editors already.
Yeah,
you're not going to get past the gatekeeper.
Right.
I mean, it's just the reality. You got it, and it's a shame. But the flip side of that is there's all this other, you know, it's what we're doing right now, and you know, so many, you know, the multi-threat way of telling stories now. With your photos online, weaving in video clips. It's all cool. I'm an old school dude. I like just words and trying to paint pictures with those, but all of that stuff, you know, I'm not going to say I don't look at those things, and I can appreciate when that's well done. It's a beautiful thing too. So there's those other avenues. many of those come with you then somewhat beholden to somebody and having to shill their product or their pitch or whatever. And, I never wanted to be part of that thing unless what I was shilling was conservation via the Elk Foundation. I can do that because I believe in it with my soul. But I pitching for somebody, not so much, even if they're a great company. But in any case, as far as the magazine that I fooled around with all those years, if you got a good story to tell, tell it. It doesn't even have to be the greatest piece of writing. I mean, a query letter is great. If you just have a story and it's a great story, just write the thing. You'll feel better no matter what. I mean, that's my take. And every time you write a story, you're going to get a little bit better, even if all you collect is a freaking, another rejection letter.
Yeah.
But
I got a bunch of those.
Of course. I mean, if you're thinking you're getting about 1,000, good luck, man.
No doubt.
The whole point is to get your stuff out there, and if you're lucky enough that an editor offers you some constructive criticism, and so take another shot at it. If you did this and this, then great. Most of the time they don't, but sometimes you'll catch their interest a little bit, and you can take another shot, write another draft. That's how you get better.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing, when I was trying to get my foot in the door, you guys were always great about the criticism. I couldn't believe the amount of time that I would get a rejection letter, of course, but there was, valuable insight within that rejection letter that inspired me to keep trying.
Well, that's a beautiful thing.
So,
and I assume that mostly came from other people.
I don't think you saw. I never got. You were the gatekeeper. I never got to.
Right. No, you got past me many times to our
eventually.
Well, that's the way it works.
It's the way it works.
But yes, we had some wonderful editors who really were generous with their time and who cultivated writers. And so this guy's got something going on. He's got a story to tell. He's got a voice of his own. Or this woman, let's work on that. Even if we're not going to buy this piece or we're not going to buy it in its current form, they'd throw you a bone and say, if you tried this,
Well, that's just good. That's just part of that's just good old fashioned kindness, though, too.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, really.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Which is harder to come by these days, I think.
Well, I mean, everybody is getting squeezed. People are asked to do more and more with fewer and fewer people in every newspaper, every magazine. It's a hard time in print right now.
I just read the latest, not yours, but the Elk Foundation's latest job post for Bugle. And it's like, I mean, yeah, to your point, you got to be a writer, a producer, an editor, a camera person, a videographer. Like, these days, man, like, the job I had in television, right? Like as the producer, where I was kind of in the background organizing everything, like that job's long gone, man. The people that do that also go out and run the camera and sell all that. They produce the entire thing, they shuffle it to YouTube or wherever it goes. They do everything. So
same deal. Yeah. Dinosaurs like me who just mess around with words.
There's still a place for it though.
There is.
That's the great thing, man. There's still a place. Like there will always be a market and a place for writing, for sure.
I believe that too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what you do there. That's going to be awesome. I'm really excited, man. You've always been not just one of my favorite outdoor writers, but one of my favorite writers, period. And I always grabbed the Elk Foundation, the Bugle every time it came out. First thing I read was the back page. And you're just one of those people that takes a lot of time with their sentences and words, or it just comes naturally to you. That I don't know.
Not very often.
But it's like there's no wasted. It's kind of like Chris Dombrowski is another example. When I read Chris Dombrowski's writing, I'm like, he didn't waste any time here. He's not taking any shortcuts. And then, I'll go back and read something that I wrote and I'm like, all right, I'm taking shortcuts. I'm slacking. I'm just putting words on paper. That's not good enough. It's hard.
It's hard. It is.
It's hard.
Yeah. Every once in a while you have one of those where you just sit down and flash it out, but that's 1 in 100, man. Most of the time it's just, you got to go back and work at it. Just keep chipping away, whittling it down, going for that clean line.
Right.
That's what you always want.
Yep. There's no shortcut there, is there? So we've touched on this podcast a couple of times. So like we had Matt Churchman on, we had Herzer on, but you were there too for the famed grizzly attack, right?
I was.
That occurred.
Yes.
So
Herzer was the hero.
Churchman was the victim. Herzer was the hero.
Correct.
You were a bystander.
Of sorts.
No, but what was your perspective? What did you see, if you don't mind telling me?
Well, I heard, I mean, we'd literally been there for 13 hours, camped there, spent the night. There was zero grizzly sign. We were like 10 minutes from launching, just relaxed, been a very pleasant morning, had breakfast. We're packing up. We're about to push off, have a great day of fishing. And John and I were along the bank loading our boats and heard Matthew yell bear and looked up, and about 2 seconds after that, it was like he got hit by a train. It threw him literally 10 feet.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And you just watched that. You saw that.
We saw that happen. We both started running. We're in our waders, wader running, and people are hollering, "Where's the bear spray?" I had just literally put mine inside my dry box. Great place for it, right? Yeah. Not highly useful. Don't do that stuff.
We've all done that.
Oh,
shit,
man.
Though.
Yeah, no, I was like, we're done here. We're not going to need it on the river.
Right.
So we're running together, and I peeled away to go to the boat. I figured we got to get some bear spray in the game. John continued on and as it turned out, ran the bear off. Which was incredibly brave, stupid, whatever you want to call it. But, he probably saved Matthew's life, certainly saved him from a lot worse. So by the time I got there, it was unnecessary. Bear was gone. But I had the bear spray, and, I could have just as easily popped off of Matthew and said, "Hey, you want some?" and put John on the ground too, and then the bear spray would have been handy, and I would have been a savvy guy. As it was, I always felt like kind of a coward, like I made the wrong call to not just run with him and give him a double team on the bear. But, you do what you do in the moment.
Oh, no. I don't
you can
think
second guess yourself.
No, I don't think at all. I think that was a good call. I mean, Jesus,
it's
man.
the call I made.
Getting a weapon into the mix, how is that a bad call?
Well, it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. But
yeah, no, I think that's pretty savvy. I think that's pretty quick thinking on your feet. Though, if you would have turned and ran the other direction, now that might have been something that you would have had to second guess.
I'd be grappling with that.
Yeah, that would have been tough on you
for sure.
Wow, well, it's crazy. I just kind of wanted to hear that just from another witness there. And your wife was with you too, and your wife is a wolf biologist. So
she was.
She's now in all wildlife.
Yeah, she's now the wildlife manager for Region 2. Yeah.
Oh, good for her. Cool.
Yeah. First woman to do it for FWP in their 100 years or so of existence.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
It's super cool.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Liz. That's awesome.
But she was a wolfer for 20 some years. That's what she did her master's on and went to school for and or got into way early on. And she was one of the first wolf biologists for FWP. Went through the whole forced reintro and all the pitchforks and torches. Worked out at Dillon, where they were not especially welcome.
Yeah,
it was kind of a crucible time, but she really loved it. It was a neat time to be in it, trying to build trust with people and find a place on the landscape for these things. Find that sweet spot, that middle ground where they could exist, and ranchers could keep making a living, and we could all learn how to live with these things that we'd been without for a good long while.
Right.
So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. No, and she was the one. She's like, the more dire things get, the steadier she gets. She just gets dead calm. She doesn't freak out. Serpents, she'll freak out, but anything else, grizzlies, wolves, lions, spiders, she's all good. Which is good because the spiders are my thing.
Are they?
Oh, yeah.
You and Lauren,
yeah. I can't do them. Snakes, I'm good.
That's the part of the story that I think is the big takeaway, that this can happen to anybody, because the group that you're with is everybody in that group is highly experienced. Not just outdoors people, but grizzly habitat people.
People have been,
yeah. And that's just, when I heard about that attack, I was I was fishing, and
as you should have been. So were we.
Yes,
right up until then.
But I had done the same trip the week prior, and likely, if I wasn't in the same camp, I was close to it.
Yeah.
And me and my buddies were pretty lax on that trip.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, like, I mean, of course, yeah, we know there's bears here. We had bear spray. We had guns. I can't say I had it on me 24/7, And I thought, as soon as I heard that story on the radio, I thought, oh shit, like could have so easily been us, and it just sent a chill down my spine. And then when I found out it was you guys, I was like, well, that really should have been us, because those guys were probably running a tighter ship than we were.
That's
crazy.
Generous. Yeah. In any case, I've changed my ways. I got it permanently on my bird vest, my hunting pack, my big game pack, my fishing pack. I just don't go without. I run with it. I got my nifty little belt. I trail run all the time. I don't want to be the stupid dude out there who doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm. Even if you go down, at least your obituary has a little more common sense.
Well, yeah, which I'm not long on, but take him as you get him. I'm a slow learner, but I can learn.
Well, cool. Well, what else we got written down here? You got a few other notes jotted down. Let's hear another story.
Oh, well, I can tell you some near-death stories.
Let's hear one.
Well, if you read Bugle, you heard the one about the stripers, but
not everybody has.
That's true. Well, somewhere on the New England coast, my buddy and I, we hit one of those just glass calm mornings, and we waded out, and it's probably 100 yards before it's even up to your boot tops. So gradual. We finally get out there. We're probably half a mile out, and it's just up over our knees. And you start seeing these fins and bulges and ripples pushing water. And you're like, holy cow, we're in them. And I don't know how many there were, 400 or 500 stripers that just rolled in, obviously had just pulled in, and they were hungry. They'd been traveling all night, and we were in them immediately. And that, it's probably like the most sublime 90 minutes of striper fishing you could possibly have. These things, size of Labradors, just, you didn't have to be anything too great.
In ankle deep water.
By that point it was knee deep. And then of course we stayed. You'd be surprised how hard it is to turn your back on freaking yard long stripers. We caught a bunch of big fish, and pretty soon then it's up to your thighs, and then it's at your waist. And finally, my buddy Cam, who's a partner in many near-death experiences, he broke the trance. He's like, we got to go. And we reeled up and started hoofing it, and how the tide is. It tends to it comes on, and it was already coming on, and that slope was so gradual, and it felt like we were walking through saltwater taffy. And then it's up to our mid chest, and it's just a matter of time. It's coming. You're starting to think, all right, can I get out of my waders? Do I ditch my vest? Do I ditch the rod? Because it's coming. You knew it was just a matter of time. Finally comes over the top of your waders, and I mean, we were just doing the nightmare slow-mo tiptoe, trying to maintain progress. And finally the bank started to tilt up. I mean, the beach looked like it was Pluto. It looked that far away. But we finally made it and dumped out a zillion gallons of the Atlantic. And so, yeah.
Oh, God.
That was dumb.
Yeah.
It happens to people all the time out there.
Does it?
Yeah. Now, Cam bought a boat.
Yeah. Right.
Smarter move. Plus, you can follow the fish that way. But his folks have a place out there.
Wow, that's crazy, man. I got to do that one time in Maine, right? So we went out and fished a tidal flat.
Yes.
And I guess I kind of have a little bit of an idea where you're coming from, because we got out there and it was like shin deep. And I didn't know, like, I'd been striper fishing before out of a boat, right? Like out of Virginia in the wintertime, and just blind casting, which was cool.
It's fun, but it's not the same.
I didn't even know that this was a thing, right? Like this was more like, this was full on flats fishing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the first fish that showed up, same, like you described, there weren't many, but the first one that showed up, it was just this big ass wake. lake. And, I'm just shaking in my boots, and made the cast, caught this gorgeous fish on the mouth of the Kennebec River. And it it was all pink and lavender, and like it looked, it was gorgeous. It was like I took some photos of it, and just some pictures of its cheeks and everything. I was like, damn, I've never seen a striper like that. But yeah, I let it go, and in like 20 minutes, you had to get that. The guy that I was with was like, we got to go. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
We can't leave this.
We're surrounded by fish. There's no one here. That's awesome. He's like, no, we're going to die. I'm like, yeah, well,
all right. You say so.
I haven't got my will put together yet. There's not much in there, but I was shocked at how quickly it came up.
It can change for sure.
Yeah. So I was sitting at this restaurant on my way home, waiting for the plane, looking at these pictures of that fish. And the guy next to me was like, oh, let me see that. And I showed him, and it turns out he was a fisheries biologist. And he's like, that's a native Kennebec hen. He's like, that's really cool that you caught that. He's like, did the other fish you catch look like that? I'm like, no, they all look kind of silverish. He's like, yeah, those aren't natives, but that's a native Kennebec hen. And like, not knowing anything about stripers, right? Because I was a West Coast kid. I was like, well, shit, these are just like steelhead, right? Like they come back to their natal waters. They've got they're just another awesome anadromous fish that has its own unique.
They are.
I didn't know that. Naively, I guess I assumed that they were just kind of a wandering, mass of fish that went into estuaries to feed. I didn't know that they like ran up and spawned in these natal streams and everything like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's pretty amazing.
They are amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And seemingly
damn near worth dying for.
Yeah, almost. Certainly worth getting to the edge.
Right.
Make great stories, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So how you grew up in Nebraska, right?
Mostly.
You said Kansas.
I started out in North Carolina.
I always associate you with Nebraska.
Yes, I started out in North Carolina, but moved to Nebraska really as I started. My dad taught there in Chapel Hill. He was a professor, and then he got to be a full professor there at the University of Nebraska, and I moved there right before going into grade school, and stayed there till I graduated high school. Then I went down to Kansas, went to school down there.
And then went to Colorado.
I started going to Colorado. I worked there every summer that I was in college.
Oh, okay.
That was my summer job.
Yeah, I wish you would have got a chance to meet my dad. You guys have such a similar story. He grew up in Nebraska and he went dude ranched in Colorado in the summer times and skied and shit. And then he, got into like elk hunting, and then he did the same thing you did. He just pulled up stakes. He had a job lined up, but he pulled up stakes and went west. A little smarter.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Now he sounded like a great guy. I wish I would have had the chance to meet him.
Yeah. It's too bad. It's too bad. It's the way, you never know, man. It goes by quickly.
Yes, it does. Yeah. You know now, as a dad yourself, you want to make the most of those years.
Man, it's a whirlwind.
Yeah. It's the biggest cliche in the world, but it's also true, man. It goes past so fast, and you want to make the most of every minute of it.
Totally. You got to catch yourself every now and then, because it's such chaos and everything at the same time. Like, I got to enjoy this chaos. It's like I'm in the middle of a tornado chaos. And I got to freaking relax and take in the sights and the sounds here a little bit.
Yeah, that's what you want to do for sure.
How do folks keep track of your future endeavors? What's the word there? I know you're busy on TikTok, and you're going to be you're going to be all over on TikTok.
Yeah, that's me to the core.
I know we're going to be following you on TikTok, but you're obviously not as much of a social media presence. In fact, that brings up another thing. In all the years we've shared this town, I can't recall ever seeing you ever on a river or in a trailhead or anywhere. So you're very good at being elusive.
Which is bizarre. Like you say, we're in that same place on that same river,
right?
A week apart. But we have been in many of the same places, I can guarantee you. But I have, as time's gone along, I've become more of a haunter of the secondary and tertiary streams. I like smaller and smaller water. partly that's my antisocial way, but there's some big fish in small water, and I like going back into wilder places, and I like having water where I know there's not somebody who just fished it 10 minutes ago and there's somebody else coming along 10 minutes behind me. I like having water where it's yours you can take as much time as you want, go with the cadence of the stream, screw it up as you're going to screw it up, instead of having somebody come in and bump the fish or whatever. But I like wandering around on that smaller water more so now than I once did. I still love big rivers, and I still love, anytime I got a pair of oars in my hand, I'm a happy man. Yeah. But even on big rivers, I'm always looking for the creeks, looking for the side channels, figured where could I go where the fish are over here getting out of the traffic, and you can find that little more intimate water. But yeah.
I'm more that way more and more too.
It's
funny. I just getting away from people is like my singular focus. Like that's number one. And then, fishing might be 2 or 3.
Yeah. But then there's
some other shit in there.
Takes you to some good places. There is some other stuff in there. But yeah, no, I'm not a huge social media person. Probably not gonna become that. Hopefully you'll see me in some of that. I'm gonna try and write some fishing stories. I've written a lot of elk stories. So maybe you'll see me in some of those mags. We'll see. I don't have a bunch of target audiences. I got stories that I want to write that I've just had in my head for a long time, and I'm going to write those and see if somebody wants to read them in some fashion. That's cool. What I'm going to do. But I did want to, before we go, I wanted to and I do have some more stories if you want more stories.
Please. I just didn't want to take your time.
No,
it's
you're
a
not
beautiful day out there,
It is
man.
a beautiful day. But
you probably have a fly rod and a shotgun in the truck.
I am leaving it early in the morning for 5 days to chase some birds in the far east of Montana.
But I want to hear some more stories.
Meeting up with my brother. But I wanted to put in a plug for all those nonprofits we already talked about. I mean, if you like to fish and hunt, you got to do it. It's just part of the deal. You'll feel better. You'll feel more fully connected. I mean, there's so many great groups. Obviously I'm a huge believer in RMEF, whatever anybody wants to say about them. To me, my favorite part of the whole deal is just like the big snow is. It's places that you can go and actually feel with your feet. I'm a simple dude. I like stuff that I can go walk around on. And that's what the Elk Foundation's been doing for going on 40 years now, is protecting places and opening them up to the public. That's what I dig. Costs you $35 a year. Montana Trout Unlimited overall as a national organization, Proud Life member, same as with Backcountry Hunters. They're just great groups. They're all coming at it a different way, but I'd give a special plug for Montana to you. David Brooks, who runs the thing, he's a very dear friend of mine. Bruce Farling, who was his predecessor, is also, we've been friends for 30 years. It's just a great outfit. They, people all over the country probably know about the Smith River, and these guys that's what they wake up thinking about every day, is how can they protect places like that, just magical places. We're talking about I floated that thing for the first time in '89, and it just completely took me over. I've been lucky enough to float it another 25 times since then. And it's just a magical place. And, a mine on one of the top 2 tributaries, spawning tribs, cold water inputs. It's just a really bad idea.
Not worth it.
I'm not against mining by any stretch of the imagination, but that mine in that place, it's a bad idea. And the idea that the thing is going to be, remain strictly on private land, it's a farce. They're absolutely going to go for those ore deposits that are on the public land around it. And, right now, thanks to the tireless Montana TU, they got the DEQ, the court overruled the DEQ. So, man, this was arbitrary and capricious. You've got no grounds to permit this mine. So that's going to the state Supreme Court now. We'll see what happens there. Mm-hmm. But that, people think that fight's over, and it's far from it.
Yeah. Pebble Mine's not over.
They're never over. That's the thing about conservation. You have to keep fighting the same damn fights over and over again, and you just can't let up. you just every once in a while you get a permanent win. I mean, that's the nice thing about these places that you permanently protect, or at least we'd like to think they're permanently protected. Those are hypothetically, that's a solid win that you can go on and move to the next one. But these mines in bad places, those are, just the same with dams. You just have to keep fighting the fights. MTU is really working hard on this totally unsexy drought management plan. But the fish we like, they like places that are wet. They like places that are cold. I mean, whatever you think about climate change, anybody who spends any time on rivers knows that there's less water in them and it's warmer, and runoff goes off earlier. And if we want to keep this thing we all love, you got to get in the fight, man. You got to step up, go volunteer, put in a day or two on the creek or out pulling fence, whatever it is you want to do. You'll feel better for it. You'll be better. Send them a check.
Yeah.
It's,
yeah. Join that's one thing, it's always like these things seem so grand in scope. These threats seem so grand in scope, and like, well, how do I get involved? Well,
right.
Yeah. And like, to your point, it really is as simple as, send the Elk Foundation $35, send Montana TU $35, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is $35. They're all very cheap. For less than $100, you could join them all for the year.
Absolutely.
And they all work in partnership often on all of these things too. So they're all they're all in cahoots. Like you said, there's, they have slightly different organizational makeups and they have slightly different agendas, but the overall agenda is the same, right? Like,
it's trying to keep this thing that we love in the simplest terms. It's just, I'm a huge believer in grassroots conservation, and you work at the level that you can understand and believe in, and that's why I like these local groups, but you need the national groups pulling hard too. I mean, I was on the board of Clark Fork Coalition, homegrown Missoula group. They do great work, man. Yeah, they're doing wonderful work up on the upper Clark Fork right now, keeping water in the river. It got down to 10 CFS. Criminal, man. Yeah, it's a crying shame. But they're doing what they can to keep some water in the river right alongside, shoulder to shoulder with MTU. It's just you got to do that stuff. And then you can go out and do all this other stuff and feel all good about yourself,
right?
Well, back in the day, I don't go in for this behavior anymore, but back when I was a whitewater guide in those early days, we used to do a lot of night fishing. We used to do a lot of Robin Hood fishing. We would go into private water, mostly private ponds, and we never kept the fish. We just wanted to give them a few workouts. But we had some interesting times on some of those. You'd have to sneak in there real quiet. One of the places we went into, they had lights on poles that they could just flip a switch and fry you right out there. They were pretty proud of their trout, and they had some big ones. But it was kind of a challenge for us. But it all came to a head for me one time. Some of us we snuck into a place that just had colossal fish. There's, and these are pond fish, but they grew robust. And, you could fish them with mice, fish them with a bugger. It wasn't sophisticated fishing at night. We're not fishing for 6X or anything.
Right.
But we had crept into this place. And again, my wife at the time was along on this one. And we got all the way up in there going quiet. And we look up and she says, "What is that?" I said, I think it's a person. And I could have reached out with my fly rod and touched this dude. And he's just standing there, silent. And, at that point, I figured he's going to say, "You're damn right it's a person and you're trespassing." Never says a word. It was the most chilling thing. I mean, we just turned and started.
Where were you?
This is on a private pond in Colorado.
In Colorado.
Yeah, back in the mid-'80s. Long time ago. Statute of limitations.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Guy never says a word. In hindsight, I assume it was somebody else who had snuck in there. And, we had just walked up on him.
But that was it? There was no interaction?
It never spoke. Great big dude.
Turn and walk away with
just,
a Bigfoot?
Well, I don't think it was Sasquatch. It looked a lot like a human being. If it was the owner, he couldn't have done anything better to cure me of my bad ways. I mean, it was a chiller.
It was the owner. That was the next level creep.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. But that was.
So you never did get to the bottom of who it was?
Oh no, we got the hell out of there, man.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, started zigzagging, figured the bullets were going to start flying.
Wow, that's like full on horror film stuff. That's cool.
It was yeah. That's the perils of this kind of stuff.
Which reminds me, have you ever seen the movie Bloodhook?
I have not.
You got to watch that.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's right up your
There's
alley.
A connection.
You got a little time on your hands.
I'll check it out.
Okay.
Noted.
Please do.
All right.
Please do. Get back to me on that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's creepy, man.
Not all of our night fishing was it. We used to. You ever fish the hog hole? Those terrible toxic ponds
by Big Sky?
No. This is down by
Warm Springs?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
As long as back as right when I first moved here.
This is we got on a jag of it in the early 90s, and it would always open up in May, and it opened at midnight, I mean, it opened on that day, so we figured midnight. So we'd always be there at midnight kicking around in our tubes. Usually catch the first fish about the time dawn broke, but we did catch some big fish at night too.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh, I squandered a lot of time kicking around in that toxic sludge, but there were some huge fish in there.
Wow, float tubing and that stuff.
Yeah, and that was one of the many other places where Herger and I almost perished there.
Yeah,
true. This was another bad duck hunting expedition. We were, I think that day, we shot 11 different species of ducks. We had to get out our book and see what the hell we were in. There were all kinds of crazy divers, but we had decided it was really windy.
Duck hunting in the sludge?
Huge whitecaps. Yeah. And then, it's really not, I wouldn't do that again. Yeah. What could be better than here you are on these toxic settling ponds.
Might as well go finish the hunt off out of the Anaconda smokestack.
Exactly.
Right?
Precisely. But we decided that we would cut across this neck of one of those ponds, and the bottom of this thing, it's nothing but silt. And pretty soon, we're up to its water is right at the freaking edge of our waders. And we linked arms. We're like, man, are we going to have to drop our shotguns?
Just the two of you?
Yes, the two of us. The waves are hammering on our chests, and we're just churning in this muck. And you can see it's like, God, can we, it's too late to turn around. We got to keep going. Surely it's going to start slanting back up here. And it did. Again, we came out of that one without going over the top, which was it was good because it was a cold day. But yeah, foolish things you do.
Now, did Kurt ever tag along with you on these misadventures, or was he too smart for that?
He's a smarter guy.
He is.
Yeah. He's got some kind of a self-preservation thing. But yeah. No, ducks almost led me to my end. I almost perished on Kelly Island one time. I don't know if you've heard that tale.
No.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Chasing ducks.
This was on.
Man, you have really pushed the envelope.
Well, yeah. I mean, who would think you're basically inside the city limits?
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Rugged outdoorsman goes down on Kelly Island, but it was New Year's Day, it's the last day of duck season, and we had just a colossal. I lived out on Rock Creek. That's first when I moved to Montana. I lived literally 10 steps from Rock Creek. I kept a rod strung up all the time.
Nice.
I fished 100 days in a row when I first moved to Montana. I mean, I could kind of catch the tender, not all day, every day, but you could catch the tenderloin of it,
Nice.
I lived right there at Ekstrom's. They were my landlords.
Oh, cool.
So I fished that last.
Cool.
I mean, I fished all of Rock Creek, and that was my first love. But that last mile from there down to the Clark Fork.
Oh man, back then it must have been just money.
It was wonderful. It was a great teacher. Showed me so many things.
How cool! Wow, that's cool.
But yeah, but we'd had a huge party there. I mean, I woke up and there were it was like, you remember Mr. Freeze from Batman had that freeze gun.
Yeah.
It was like people they were just sleeping
Mr.
on the
Freeze.
stairs and leaning up against the wall, and the most You know, it was like they'd been poisoned and struck dead, or at least just waxed and we woke up and I was like, oh man, it's the last day of duck season. We got to go, right? Yeah. Someplace close. Yeah, we'll go someplace close. And how about Kelly Alley? You bet, man. And, you know, there's pretty good duck hunting out there late season.
Right.
There's a bunch of spring holes.
Yeah, totally.
You know, so, and it was a cold day. If it ever got above zero, it wasn't by many degrees. So, you know, we'd take turns going for walks and warm up, you know, but every once in a while, a few greenies would drop in and we'd picked up a few. So I went out on this sortie and you know, creeping around on these side channels. I look over and like, I can't believe it, man. There's a Drake wood duck of all things.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they usually are gone in September, right?
Crazy.
There it is, New Year's Day. This beautiful bird jumps up and I shoot it and it swirls back down. And I'm like, oh man, I'm just going to lord this over herder.
Yeah.
You know, check this out, dude. And pride goeth before a fall. I mean, it wasn't 10 minutes after that. I come to this huge down cottonwood, frost all on the thing. Anybody with any sense would have just swung leg and then the other leg and gone over it. But I stood up on the thing. My feet shoot out from under me, drop like a guillotine. My head cracks on that cottonwood. I woke up. I've got vomit on my chest.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm shivering, and it's almost dark.
You know, you're hungover.
This was late in the. Oh, I was already. Yeah, I didn't start out in
mess.
Yeah, precisely. Now I've got a pretty major concussion, and I had no idea where I was, and I set off, and I was like, all right, I got to get walking, man. It's the last light, and my head's just like you hit it with a freaking maul. And I got down to the end of the island and I hit the main river and I thought I was walking 180 degrees in the other direction. And I was just stunned, just completely like, where am I? And I was so out of it. I was so thirsty. If you've ever had a concussion, thirst is part of the deal. I got down on all fours, drank out of the river like a quadruped. And about this time, Herger, being who he is, he touches off around way up at the other end of the whole mess. And I'm like, I'm saved. I'm not going to perish, you know? So I made my way to him and just another story.
Oh, but, goodness.
Yeah.
Well,
it pays to have some sense.
Dan, you be safe out there now that you're unhinged. I mean, who's going to chaperone you?
I know. You'd like to think that you have learned. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Are you yourself a master angler?
Well, no, I'm not.
You're not bound to in any state.
I learned about this when I had Eric Einspar from the Cornhusker Fly Fishers.
I listened to that
Did
podcast.
You listen to that? So
yeah,
tell me
wonderful.
About being a master angler.
Yes,
I do come from. My grandfather was an admiral in the Nebraska Navy, but that's as far as our accolades go.
Gotcha. You could probably become one if you worked at it.
You think so?
I think you probably could.
Well, tell me.
It's such a shtick. This buddy of mine, Cam, the same dude who I almost perished with chasing the stripers, he was just up in, I think it was Saskatchewan, Manitoba, one of the two, fishing for giant pike. And he catches one. I think he got one that was 44 inches. And out of nowhere, they sent him this thing, you know, they're certifying that he is, in fact, a master angler. What a shtick, you know, he appealed to his ego and his vanity.
Yeah.
Now I got to go back to, but I myself am a master angler. You know, my dad, I think it was a 5-pound bass is what it took that was the benchmark in Nebraska to qualify as a master angler. And he got a 6-pounder on a jitterbug, beautiful bass.
Master.
You know? And I was like, oh man, I got to do that. Yeah. And when the way I got there, improbably, you know, like so many people, I grew up, you know, there in Lincoln in southeast Nebraska, and never realized the cool part of Nebraska at all. We always went up north. That was what we did. We went to Minnesota,
right,
which is wonderful. You know, until I
But you had the Niobrara right over there.
We
right?
never knew. I never went out. I had to leave the state to figure out that Western Montana was really this incredible. Western Nebraska, Panhandle was this incredibly cool place.
It is too.
I love it. My brother and I still go back there and hunt prairie chickens and sharptails.
Oh, cool. Right. You were just doing that, right?
We were.
Good for you.
And I have fished some of those streams for trout, and it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
But this buddy of mine had figured out that there was a pond there in the sandhills, this clear water, and he'd figured out that this thing had giant bluegill. And I was like, I got to get in on this. It's like a 5-hour drive from where I was living. I lived west of Boulder at the time in Colorado, and I got to go try for one of these things. And I went out there, and at that point I had just learned about the Klausers. I had one. Who goes with one bug of anything? It's like the only time I've ever gone on a quest. And, within 15, 20 minutes, I had caught this giant bluegill. I mean, the thing, it was over 2 pounds.
Damn.
I wound up mounting the thing.
Sure.
I was 24.
Of course. You still have it?
Oh, well, that's funny you should ask. You should ask Herzer what happened to it. But
I will.
I have never gotten the straight story on that. And then, of course, I snapped my one miracle bug off in the wind about 5 minutes later, and nothing else. I never caught another one. But I had this thing, so I went and got him weighed in, and you got to mount that. And actually, to me, trout mount, I would never mount any fish at this point. I was young. Both the fish I mounted were the same year. I was 24. I caught a great big rainbow, 28 inches. I mounted that thing. But to me, trout mounts, they're a dime a dozen. That bluegill mount was like
that's
cool.
Rare. No, that's really cool. Yeah,
I mean, it weighed
a 2 pound bluegill. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was. I'd
like mount that.
11 inches long and almost that deep. It was just a circle.
That's cool.
It was a cool fish, but I loaned those to Herzer years ago when they first bought that shop in Phillipsburg. Flint Creek Outdoors.
Oh yeah. Was it in the shop?
That was the theory. And it involved Labradors, and
God, I wonder if I saw it. I went up there right when he first opened. I'm trying to remember.
I've had labs all my days, but supposedly the demise of this thing came at the hands of some of his earlier chocolate labs. There's never been a true story told of the thing, but it's gone. And if it went to a lab, then it's a good cause.
Okay.
I mean, it's like with so much. I dig European mounts. That's my thing.
Me too.
Most
as far as it goes for me. Yeah.
Taxidermy. It's like buying a car. It's never going to look as good as it did the first day.
Yeah.
They just get dusty and shabby.
I know. And I think it's just, it's just not for me. Like, to each their own, right?
Yeah, precisely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But,
I can appreciate the artistry in it.
It's not for me. I inherited several when my dad passed, and
and you got to keep them, right?
Big ass muley buck.
Right.
It's a really cool rack that he shot right outside of Bend, Oregon when he first moved there.
Back when it was a town of 5,000.
Exactly. Yeah. And the damn thing almost made Boone and Crockett.
Yeah.
I still have the score sheet. And,
cool.
And I'm like, well, this needs to go somewhere. So
was
I
that
gave
with
it
that
to my
257?
No, he shot it with the 270.
Beautiful.
That was before he had the 257. The 270 was the first gun he bought when he moved to Oregon.
Beautiful.
And then he got the 257, I think, like in the early 80s or something, when that cartridge kind of became popular.
Yeah. And you still have them both.
All the rage. Oh, yeah. We're going to the range today to go
right on.
Yeah, with Lauren. So,
I'm a Model 70 guy.
The 257 is an awesome gun.
Yeah.
Like that thing, like growing up, I don't know how many different people I witnessed shoot a deer with that, because he just always had it.
Yeah.
In those days, we'd be chucker hunting or whatever, and it was more like Montana back then in Eastern Oregon, where you just had a general deer tag, and like, oh, there's a buck. Oh, I got a deer tag. Oh, I got this gun here, and boom, somebody would, kill an animal with this 257 Roberts. So it was just like this laser gun.
Right.
But it really is, man. It's a good cartridge.
I totally derailed you. You were talking taxidermy.
That's all right. No, that's all right. But anyway, so the buck I got in a good place. I gave it to my buddy who's got a spot down in Darby.
Nice.
And put it in the shed. It looks great.
Perfect.
And then I still have the antelope, and he's got this cool whitetail mount, but like, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I just got to find the right homes for them.
Yeah.
They need to be somewhere, but it's not going in my place.
Yeah, no, I like skulls, but that's just me.
I do
too. It's just.
Well, we're getting way off.
Yeah,
topic.
we have left fishing behind.
Yeah, we're going to get in trouble, man.
Yeah. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to plug here.
Please.
No, I mean, this is I got endless stories, but. Here's one last one to wrap out the whole elk thing. I once and this whole fishing to off target items. This one I did target. I was on a river that I'm not going to name, tributary of a river. And I see this great big elk shed down in the bottom. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to swim down to that thing, but I can probably hook it. And so I started dredging for the thing, and I just put on more and more weight because this was in runoff. It was pretty good. This was post runoff, but there was still a pretty good current. Finally, I got down to the thing. I come tight and I've got it. And this was with a 6-weight. It's a pretty beefy rod. And I thought I was going to break my rod, which would have been just one of thousands, as Herger can attest. But I finally managed to swing the thing ashore. It's a great big 6-point, and it's just horribly waterlogged. It was so putrid. It's just vile. I mean, I don't know if I've ever smelled anything worse than I've fished with a lot of horrible things.
So is the whole head?
No, this was just one side. It was a big 6-point, but it was just it had begun to decompose, and it had to rejoin the stream after all that.
Couldn't keep it.
No, I had to let that one go, and happily so.
Yeah.
But it was another good elk trout connection.
Elk trout, yeah. Well, it's probably better for the watershed.
Exactly. That thing went back in.
Yeah, man.
That is a key spawning trib for bull trout, and I like to think that it went from bull to bull.
There you go. There you go, man. Yeah, for sure it did. Well, right on, Dan, man. Thanks again for joining us today. I really appreciate it, buddy. This has been a lot of fun, and I just wanted to say thank you for all your support with my writing over the years. It's meant a lot to me, and I really appreciate everything you did for me, everything you did for elk country, everything you continue to do, and Godspeed, brother, and enjoy your calm down time here before you fire something up that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Thank you so much. No, it really has been wonderful. And like we were saying, the Elk Foundation so much better. I mean, making that magazine, I loved it. I got paid to do something I loved, but I was doing it for this thing that was so much bigger, these wild places and wild animals that have just, they've made my life so much richer. What a cool thing. How lucky is that, And then really all of the whole thing with editing, all the freaking proofreading and fact checking, reading through 5 zillion drafts, fighting for the integrity of the magazine, all that stuff. Really what it all boils down to, editing is just helping people tell better stories. And that was my favorite part. And you told some great ones. And, if we can, if we help some people along the way hone their craft, tell a little better story. And, absolutely, it made me a better writer too, just working with people's words, seeing how people tell stories. Everybody's coming at it from a different way. I learned a lot from you too, brother. Believe me.
Oh, man.
And you got some great stories to tell, and I hope you keep telling them.
I plan on it. I you know how it is. It's just like, if this is another thing real quick that Dombrowski,
you go ahead, man.
Dombrowski told Lauren that his wife told him, like, if the writing is important enough, you'll make the time for it. You'll find the time for it.
Yes.
And that struck a chord with me because I feel like it bothers me when I don't make time to write. And it's hard right now and whatever. That's an excuse, but I can get up early and write again. I need to.
It feeds a different part of you.
It does.
There's nothing. I mean, I love all this other stuff we've been talking about, but there just isn't anything like writing. It just feeds a different part of you, challenges you in a different way. Yeah. And when you get one good sentence, what a cool thing. And you just, when it feels like, I got that one, maybe that's the only one in that piece, but if you had one good sentence, take them as you get them.
Right.
And when you tap into that thing and it suddenly starts to feel like, it's just coming together after all that frustration and beating your head and like, I'm not telling the thing right.
Right.
It's hard, man. And I'm not trying to make myself out as anything I'm not. I am by no stretch a great writer, but
that's not
we
true.
all rise to the level that we can rise to.
That's
and the doing of the thing it's a beautiful thing when it works, but it is work.
It is.
But it's good work.
It is, man. And the one thing you won't lament, which I believe I read that Thomas McGuane did lament, was that he did not spend enough time outdoors fishing and hunting because he spent too much time riding.
Yeah. And this is coming from a guy who's probably spent more damn time outside than we'll ever hope to.
Probably.
But, we all have our aspirations.
He did.
And our appetites.
Yeah.
He lived big. Still does.
He does.
Yes.
So anyway, you got the Curtis Creek Manifesto there. What's up with that?
It's a comic book, man, but it's a good
comic
book.
No, I know that book.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you bring it for?
Because I gave you, I guess I sent that to Lauren. I sent her that quote at the end of the thing, which, it's about secret spots and keeping your mouth shut.
Okay.
It's the very last words in the thing. And it's
Let's
horrible.
hear it.
This thing is totally outdated.
It's
most
awesome,
of its
man.
techniques.
I remember that book.
I learned a lot from it.
I did too.
No,
it's great. This is a great way to end it.
Yeah. No, his final, he said, "Is there really a Curtis Creek? Possibly, my darlings, quite possibly. But I will say no more, because that is your final lesson, to go forth and seek your own Curtis Creek, a delightful, unspoiled stretch of water that you will cherish above all others. There are few Curtis Creeks in this life, so when you find it, keep it secret well." Amen to that.
Amen.
Go to thefebruaryroom.com, where you can access a complete library of our podcast and read more about our guests, their fishing stories, and favorite fly patterns. We're always looking for exceptional fly fishing yarns, and if you have one to spin, shoot us an email at info@thefebruaryroom.com. The February Room is always free, but if you feel like throwing a nickel in the pond, we appreciate any additional listener support. For companies and individuals interested in sponsorship opportunities, please contact us for our media kit. Thanks for stopping by the February Room, and we'll see you down here next week.